Harvey Specter is the man and kills it in the clothing department from super formal to super casual. Stick around to find out exactly what Harvey does to look so good, so you too can look as good as Harvey Specter in all situations. So overall, Harvey's style is very classic and refined. We're not going to see a lot of adventurous colours or style combinations. Harvey likes to keep things very classic and timeless and muted. But because of this, some people might find Harvey's style to be a little bit boring. And to be honest, I do find myself within this pack of people. But if you're just getting into style or buying your first suit, I would highly recommend looking to Harvey's style for inspiration. His styling and colour combinations will work for most people in a variety of situations. And the fit of Harvey's clothing is about as timeless and elegant as the styling. It's a very good fit, generally quite slim, following the contours of his body almost perfectly. However, on occasion, I feel that sometimes he falls a little bit short in this department, especially in some of his suits in the earlier seasons, because look, in some situations, he has so much fabric in his trousers, if he jumped out of a plane or off a cliff, he'd probably just glide down. One of Harvey's most notorious quotes is, "People respond to how we're dressed." And from this, we can tell that Harvey doesn't dress well because he wants to, but because he uses it as a tool to get what he needs out of the situation. And this is why he goes for muted, easy to wear pieces. He wants to pack as much of a punch as possible with as little effort required from his part. And the main way that Harvey's clothes work for him is that they make him look more masculine and dominant. Let's now move on to his suits specifically. Harvey is going to be found mostly in 100% worsted wool suits, which is really good medium weight fabric for most times of the year. In fact, it's what you're going to find most suits made out of, so in this respect, you don't have anything to worry about. Staying with his conservative nature, most of his suits are in a block colour, such as navy, grey, charcoal, or if he's feeling adventurous, perhaps a brown. In most circumstances, they're completely solid with no patterns. Towards the earlier seasons, sometimes Harvey was seen wearing a chalk striped suit. I think it's a really cool look that works for him. On top of this, Harvey's jackets are most of the time going to be a standard 2-button configuration. On some occasions, he also brings in 3-button jackets, which in my opinion don't really work for him, especially with the wide peak lapels, which we'll come on to later, and just look a bit off. However, on some occasions, like Mike's wedding, Harvey brings in a 6-buttoned, double-breasted Y configuration suit. And this obviously shows that Harvey feels it is a more dressy and more celebratory outfit. Most of Harvey's jackets feature a wide peak lapel, which is incidentally what I'm wearing at the moment. And linking back to what we said earlier about dressing for utility, these wide peak lapels build up Harvey's shoulders and make him look more masculine, and combine with the other elements of his suits to create a cohesive look. I personally love wide peak lapels, and if you ask me, this is probably the defining element of Harvey's suit style. Harvey's jackets also have strong structured shoulders, which work to combine with the lapels to build up that masculine V shape. And the final main feature of Harvey's jackets is the ticket pocket. It's a traditionally British detail, which works to set his suit apart from the crowd, again without drawing too much attention. Moving from the jacket down to the trousers, most of Harvey's trousers have a medium to high rise, and this works really well for most guys for a more comfortable experience. Most trousers these days are cut with a low rise, which means that the trousers just finish a bit lower down on your waist. I prefer higher to mid-rise trousers as they provide a lot more of a comfortable experience, and I personally find that the fabric just falls a lot more elegantly. And this combines really well with the second element of Harvey's trousers, which are side adjusters. This is probably the best invention since sliced bread when it comes to trousers. Side adjusters are essentially a mechanism to increase and decrease the size of your waistband dynamically on the go. It works by having little pull tabs on either side of the trouser waistband, which means you can pull to make the trouser tighter or release them to give you a little bit more room after a big client lunch. The combination of high to medium rise trousers with side adjusters is a match made in heaven. Trust me, I've got some. They are absolutely incredible. Other than these two slightly atypical factors, Harvey's trousers feature a flat front, which is very standard on most trousers these days, which basically means they don't have any pleats and look a bit more modern. The final detail of Harvey's trousers is the full break at the trouser hem, and in my opinion is a little bit too long for most men, Harvey included. I really feel that most guys and Harvey should go with a half break, which means that there is still a break there, but it's not as excessive as we see on most of Harvey's suits. The amount of fabric left at the trouser break is a little bit sloppy. Don't sue me, it's just an opinion. Let's quickly cover a wild card that he sometimes throws into his looks, which is a matching waistcoat. I personally feel they step the formality up just a little bit, set you apart from the crowd, and just show that you're a confident guy in general. All of Harvey's waistcoats feature a standard V-cut and 6 buttons on the front. So I've mentioned the jacket, the trousers, and the waistcoat. I think there are 5 things that we can take from Harvey's suits. Firstly, if in doubt, go for 100% wool suits. They're going to be the most versatile fabric and they're going to work for most guys. Secondly, following on from this, if you're in the market for your first suit or you don't have a very expansive suit collection, keep any new acquisitions in a dark colour. These are extremely versatile and will get you through most situations. If you've already got Harvey's favourite colours of navy and charcoal, you might want to look at something a bit more adventurous like medium grey or brown. Number 3, use elements of suits to build up your frame and make you look more masculine. Again, this goes back to the wide peak lapels and the structured shoulders. Both of these things are going to create that illustrious V shape and increase your visual dominance and assertiveness. And before I cover the fourth point, this just really highlights the importance of clothing. There is no other element in your arsenal, which means that people will have a better perception of you before you've even opened your mouth. So guys, make sure you master your clothing and put yourself ahead of everyone else in the room. Number 4, introduce a waistcoat. As I've said, I'm a big fan of waistcoats and I think you should be too. They're a really cool way to level up your style and show that you're not afraid of stepping outside of the box. However, if you want to dress better than Harvey, look at bringing in odd waistcoats which don't match perfectly with the suit. Or if you do want to match it with a suit, try and find one with lapels or slightly more interesting features. And number 5, introduce high-waisted trousers with side adjusters. The only caveat is that they are a little bit difficult to find. Have you learned something in this video so far? If so, conquer the like button down below so we can get this video out to more guys that need it. So Luke, that's all well and good, but where the hell can I actually buy this stuff? The first one is Suit Supply, specifically their Washington line. All of the suits in this line feature structured shoulders, and most of them feature wide peak lapels, ticket pockets, side adjusters and high-rise trousers, which for the suit that we're looking for is an absolute home run. However, some of these suits might be a little bit out of the way of some of your guys' budgets, which I completely understand. And on top of this, off the rack, you can only buy them in a size pairing. If Suit Supply doesn't work for you, you can try and go directly to the vendor of most of Harvey's suits from the show, who is the one, the only Mr. Tom Ford. However, unless you're willing to spend a couple of $1,000s on one suit, unfortunately, this isn't an option for most guys as well. Finally, and what may be the best option for some of you guys out there, you can go custom. There's been a recent explosion of online custom suit retailers. And the whole idea of these guys is that you go onto their website, customize the suit to your preference and size, and have it delivered to your house hassle-free. However, again, the best services can be a little bit pricey and the results are generally mixed. Okay, so we've talked about his suits, let's move on to Harvey's shirts. All of his shirts are going to be in light standard colours, such as white or light blue. Most of these shirts are just of a block colour with no extra details. Especially in some of the earlier seasons, Harvey did wear a few striped shirts. In these circumstances, most of them did feature a little bit of colour to brighten up his clothing, which I'm a really big fan of. And with these combinations, he matches his ties perfectly. With a stripy blue shirt, he matches it with a blue tie. And with the stripy pink shirt, he matches it with a burgundy tie. These combinations work so well because he's keeping the colours within the same family. He's pairing the blues with the blues and the pinks with the burgundies. And if you're struggling to match colours, especially with stripy shirts, that is an incredible hack that I can recommend for you. Throughout the show, he's seen to wear shirts with French cuffs, which take cufflinks, and with barrel cuffs, which have buttons on them. However, in a majority of circumstances, Harvey has a tendency to wear barrel cuff shirts. And on some of these cuffs, Harvey has his signature HS monogram in either a light grey or sky blue thread. Now moving on to the defining feature of Harvey's shirts, which is the semi-spread collar, which I'm currently wearing right now. This collar is on the slightly more dressy side and does really well to accommodate Harvey's tendency towards larger tie knots, which I'll cover in a second. But what I really like about it is in the name. It's a spread collar and has the points at a wider position than some other collar types, which are a little bit more pointed, classic and conservative. In my personal style, I really like blending modern with classic, which I think this really hits the spot on. And because it's spread, it actually works in proportion for a lot of guys' face shapes, such as myself. I have a slightly longer face than I do wide, which means that the width of the collar type works to balance out the proportions and keep everything looking in check. This is in comparison to some of the more pointed collar types, which would just elongate my face. But all in all, the elements of Harvey's shirts mean that they're very versatile and that they can be worn to any formal situation. But again, where can I pick shirts like this up? Well, the good news is these sort of shirts can be basically bought at any reputable shirt retailer. I think though the biggest problem you might have is finding the correct semi-spread collar type. There's so many collar types out there. You've got your classic collars, you have cutaway collars, extreme cutaway collars, you have Italian spread, semi-spread, full spread. There's just so many out there, but don't let yourself shoehorn into this semi-spread collar type. Just find something that works for you. So what can we take from his shirts? Well, there's only one point. Keep it simple. 95% of the time he wears a white shirt with buttons, and if you're struggling to find something to wear, that's always going to suffice. Now let's move on to his ties. Most of Harvey's ties are made of 100% silk and are in a dark colour such as navy, grey, or something a little bit more adventurous like purple. Though most of his ties are in a block pattern, quite a few of them do feature a repeated pattern or some sort of texture on the tie. Any sort of variety here is very welcome in such a standard dress code. I think these just work to add a little bit of texture and interest to his outfit. In the earlier seasons, Harvey did bring in a couple of slightly bolder striped ties. And all of these ties are going to be around 8 to 9 centimeters in width, which works with the rest of Harvey's styling preferences, such as the width of his lapels. All of these items work in tandem to create a proportional look. Let's move on to the most defining feature of his ties, which is the way that he ties his knots. The elephant in the room is that Harvey likes to tie big knots, the full Windsor and the half Windsor. And both of these knots are fully symmetrical and very formal. Personally, I feel that the full Windsor knot is a little bit too big for Harvey, and it would be best if he brought that out of his rotation. Even though the semi-spread collar does have quite a lot of room to play with, the full Windsor on most occasions produces too big of a knot and throws everything out of balance. The alternative tie knot, the half Windsor, is a much better alternative, and in my opinion should be used all the time in his circumstance. But again, Harvey ties larger knots to command attention and convey his authority. So it's just another typical power play that matches with the rest of his style. For you guys, I would recommend learning and implementing the half Windsor. Aside from his large tie knots, Harvey also ties his ties with a large tie dimple. And this is just a nice element that shows that Harvey pays attention to the details, and it also helps draw attention to the face. So look guys, it's completely free, won't cost a penny, and I completely recommend that you learn how to tie a killer tie dimple. I think there are 4 things that we can take from Harvey's ties. Firstly, if you don't have an expansive tie collection and you're looking for something versatile, keep it safe with 100% silk and muted colours such as navy, burgundy or grey. Secondly, the tie width at the widest point of 8 centimeters, which is typically what most of Harvey's ties come in at, is probably going to be most proportional for most guys. I'm quite a slender guy. I've tried really wide 9.5 centimeters and slightly more thinner 7.5, 7, 6 centimeters, and I find that 8 centimeters is a really nice middle ground and works with any sort of classic outfit. Number 3. Always tie a dimple. Enough said. Number 4, and I think this is going to be the biggest advice for most guys, and that's to experiment with your tie knots. As a rule of thumb, if you have a collar with less room, you're going to want to tie a very narrow tie knot, such as the 4-in-hand, and if you have more room in the collar, like the semi-spread, you can tie bigger knots to fill that space. Now let's move on to his accessories. Probably the most present accessory of his is the pocket square. I'm a firm believer that when you're wearing a suit, you should always have some sort of pocket square. And if you've got a white shirt like Harvey has most of the time, the easiest thing you can do is just to slap a white pocket square in with a presidential fold. This subtle detail that again doesn't really cost much, just takes your outfit up to the next level and shows that you pay attention to the details. His second main accessory is a watch, specifically the silver chronograph, the Patek Philippe 5004P. And though it's not confirmed, I also believe he has worn a gold Jaeger LeCoultre Reverso and a black on black Rolex Submariner. The only advice I can give you here is to make sure that you're wearing a badass watch with your suit. Preferably, if you have a leather strap on that watch, have it match with the rest of the leather on your outfit. And the final item I want to talk about in this respect is Harvey's footwear. He typically tends towards business shoes, such as black toe-capped Oxfords, which make up a majority of his wardrobe. However, we do see him bring in other colours, such as light brown, brown and oxblood, which in my opinion is quite a nice variety of colours to match with his muted suits. Most of Harvey's shoes, like his suits, come from Tom Ford and feature Goodyear welt construction, which is quite a costly process but makes the shoe extremely robust. So in my opinion, the first couple of seasons of suits have the best clothing moments, all the way from the suiting to the shirts to the ties. So if you're looking for inspiration, just load up season 1 and 2 and you'll be good to go. Subscribe to the Hero and Vin Style YouTube channel so you too can be the protagonist.